Chen. Okay, it's such a pleasure to welcome you to attend our 2025 ELC conference about the impact of AI on the language education. So the theme of this year, that would be the language in the post-AI world. I think that would be especially timely, and I'm glad we have this space to discover it together. Okay. I promised myself to memorize all these lines, but my brain didn't go out like that. Okay, so I have to read my notes. And so I want to start by giving a warm thank you to our 3 distinguished speakers this year. Professor Paul Horness, okay, from Soka University, Japan. Okay. And Professor Henry Satosa from University of Ganesha in Bali. Okay. The third speaker, Dr. Nigel Daly from the Taiwan External Trade Development Council, who will be here in the afternoon. Okay. So we are so honored to have you here. Okay. And I also like to thank all our presenters for your sharing and for your support. Okay. And your insights and energy keep this conversation growing year after year. Okay. Then a huge thank you to Scott, our conference coordinator. His passion and commitment was an important driving force for today's event. Okay, thank you. Without his effort, yes, and this conference would not have been possible. Okay. And last but certainly not the least, okay, thank you to all the wonderful ELC staff who have worked hard behind the scenes, okay, to bring everything together. Okay. Now let's enjoy a great day, okay, of sharing, reflection, and discovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Paul Horness, and I want to thank somebody else that. It's working. Okay, so I want to, in addition to all the people that Ashley has thanked, I want to thank the MCU Higher Education Sprout project that has funded this. But not only have they funded this project, they've made this event possible in a way that you might not know about. I know Paul, our keynote speaker today, because the MCU Higher Education Sprout project supported me to go to Cam TESOL last year in 2024. And it was there that I had the opportunity to meet Paul completely by accident. And we were able to meet during a plenary speech where we started talking about a project that Paul does with his students, where we were able to arrange a student exchange in English between his students in Japan and my students in Taiwan. And that's worked out amazingly. So Paul and I have been working together ever since then. We had the chance to meet each other again in Cam TESOL this year, 2025. And it's our pleasure to have him down here as our keynote speaker, our opening keynote speaker. Paul is a full professor at Soka University in the World Language Center. He has a PhD from Temple University in Japan, and he is the Japan representative for Cam TESOL Conference Program Committee. And it's my pleasure to introduce him this morning. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Okay, so some technical questions. How do I get to my slide here?
I saw you.
I escape and then.
It's a trick.
Okay.
It's a trick.
Okay. Okay. So I'd like to say thank you to. Here we go. Okay. Thank you to everyone for making it. I'm sure the weather was fantastic this morning, right? You're getting out in the lovely rain. So I do appreciate you waking up, in early morning, coming in here and participating in this shared event. As you can see by the title, I'll be speaking about AI in L2 learning. And again, for approximately 40-45 minutes speaking, I hope to cross a broad range of topics so that everybody can think about and again consider their position within the field of L2 learning. Whether you are a student or whether you are a teacher, Again, I think talking about this is some of the big takeaways that you've just mentioned. There's the government project helping us think about community and how we can share our community outward. So generally speaking, just a little bit about AI prep. I'm pretty certain most of you are familiar with the use of AI, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. And then I'll talk a little bit about pedagogy and then the implications of pedagogy and AI. So you might be thinking to yourself, what's in it for me, so to speak? You know, as an audience member, what are you going to get out of this? So I'm hoping that you can kind of think about your role in this community. As Scott mentioned earlier, the government affords us some money to kind of expand, make connections, and I think the use of AI at the moment may be at different levels for different people in this room. So kind of my perspective is maybe pulling all of this together and seeing if how you see yourself within this role. So there are several, more than several, there's quite a few organizations. Teach AI is a organization sponsored by Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, several corporations related to promoting AI. And again, if you haven't been to their website, Teach AI is probably a place that you might want to go and access. I have the slides. I'm sure Scott will send out the slides to everybody if they want the slides. On there I have several links, including this one. And they basically offer 4 pillars of thinking or maybe positioning yourself. And obviously it starts with policy, but I think at the moment policy is not so clear. There might be a national policy here in Taiwan. There's certainly not a national policy in Japan. Again, in the United States, there's not a national policy. It's, again, still at a local level. And I think, for me, when I'm thinking about this, is community is the important one here. How you think about community. And us, this is a type of community. So we have several leaders in the room. And I think it's our responsibility to raise awareness and allow for greater usage of AI. At the moment, the key point for me is capacity. So again, maybe in this room there's quite a few people that have a great understanding of AI and its use. And therefore, maybe through their knowledge, we can share that knowledge, and that maybe the community that we're in can be a little bit broader and more effective in implementing some of the AI ideas that are out there. And hopefully, again, I don't think we're currently at the position, but policy. I'm hoping that policies become a little bit better at top-down and implementing standards where maybe those that are unfamiliar with the use of AI in the classroom become more comfortable and can use it. So these are kind of the 4 pillars that I'm thinking about, and hopefully that you can see yourself somewhere within this range. And again, I feel like maybe my capacity is maybe smaller than most of you in this group, but through your willingness to share, that you allow me into the community, that has raised my awareness, and as we move forward, we can kind of think about standards. Again, standards in teaching, which those standards probably will hopefully lead to better policy. Again, when we talk about AI, and again, it's just kind of exploded on the scene, so to speak, for L2 teaching. Generally, I get 2 responses. One, AI helps cheating. Students just use it to cheat. There's just the fear of cheating is very, very high. And then the other one, obviously, will AI replace me? again, I don't know where you're at in your journey. Again, if you're a young teacher, this might be an important question to ask. If you're, you know, older, like myself, it's a more difficult question to answer because I'm doing teacher training. How do I approach this? How do I say to a young person, yeah, you won't be replaced? And so I think addressing these two very big factors in our field is something that we need to think about. So why do students cheat? Again, if you just take a moment, if somebody's next to you, you can just kind of think about, again, if you're a student, you might know why you cheat. I'm not really sure, but again, just kind of build your schema if you want to think about it. So I'll just give you a few moments. I want to think about why students cheat. You guys may want to tell me. You probably already know if you haven't met already. But again,
more background.
Yeah, this is very interesting.
no.
Using my experience, they just found me nothing to do with school.
Sure, it's much more positive. I'm thinking more background.
Talking about this, I imagine most of you have some quick answers, and I'm going to say morality is not the main answer here. So if you can kind of go beyond the morality point, why do students cheat?
For me, I try to use the task so that using AI is an issue.
If I can bring it back to the front, so the Graduate School of Education at Stanford University has offered. They obviously looked into this, and there are reasons, obviously, kind of 1, 2, and 3. These are the main reasons why students cheat. Right? This is pretty common. For whatever reason, the animation's not working here, but that's fine. Give you all the answers at once. You can kind of scan through it. But I think this is very interesting as a teacher how to see this. Again, time constraints. When I talk to my students, the number one thing that we talk about is time management. And again, the higher you go up, the more time management is important. And I think we've all had that experience. You give an assignment, you come back. Again, I'm kind of dating myself maybe a little bit where the internet came out and people copied and paste. And they made no attempt to delete or revise their copy and paste moment, right? So you can ask the student, did you write this? And they say, oh, yes, I wrote this. And it says, API, news source, just this, with the date on there. I'm like, really? I mean, this is pretty obvious you copied and pasted, right? So I would imagine with AI, it's going to happen similarly. Those that have limited time and are just going to copy and paste or just throw it out there, you're going to be able to detect that. You're going to be able to see that. And I think that's going to be constant. And as they concluded, the amount of cheating hasn't changed with AI. Right? I think that's kind of an important point to say. Number 2 and number 3, I think, are really, really important. Again, lack of connectivity to the school, lack of purpose or meaning. And again, as a teacher, I have to think about this. Are my assignments meaningful? If they're not meaningful, okay, then you're tempting the students to say, oh, I'm going to dismiss this assignment. It's not really that important. So, yeah, no big deal. Right? Again, connectivity to the school. I think this is very, might be speaking out of bounds, but I feel this is very American-centric, and how students identify with their university is maybe stronger than perhaps other places in the world. But where I work at Soka University in Japan, it's very focused. Excuse me. The connectivity to the school is very, very important. So I'm not really sure here at this university the students feel well connected. I'm not sure if the university makes an effort to make sure that students are, excuse me, individually connected. But I think these things are really important if you're thinking about cheating. And it's not a question of whether AI increases the opportunity to cheat or not. Okay. Hope and Lee gave us a metaphor. I think it's okay. And they basically kind of equated it to AI literacy and driver's ed. So if you've driven a car or went through the process, you went to driving school to get your license. Because you basically know that driving a car is dangerous. It's inherently dangerous, right? You have to use it responsibly. Okay, you just can't jump in and drive away. I mean, you can, but it increases the danger aspect. And if you do it continuously, things you might not have such a wonderful result of that. So I do like that idea, and I say the same thing to our students. We want to help the students be more literate, and just saying go use AI on their own is irresponsible of us, right? And irresponsible of the school. So the more we can support, scaffold that up, the better. So does AI increase the possibility of cheating? I don't think so. But what do students say, right? When we look at research, this is, pardon my, I don't know the pronunciation, is it Dong and Min, right? They were researchers in Vietnam. They were looking at first-year university students, and so they were asking their perspective. And they obviously came up with 5 ideas, which basically said the university is not using AI. There's a very low usage of AI. So again, think about your context. The students felt it was better to learn from the teacher. And again, the use of AI, they wanted to use AI with the teacher. Right? That's kind of the point of the idea. They were worried that AI might limit their creativity, that they felt somewhat dependent on just kind of following what was happening, and that maybe they weren't necessarily in control. Some of the chatbots that they were using, they felt was quite unnatural. Again, I think that's probably a reflection of AI at the moment. Maybe as we go forward, it'll become more natural as we move forward. Thank you. The other interesting idea that came out of this study was the students' awareness of privacy. Where is this information going? And these are some things that early on that I see at conferences people not necessarily talking about, right? And we need to talk a little bit more about this. Where is the data going? And again, kind of the general feeling, does this ring true to you? Again, if there are students in here, recent students, to what extent, again, from a teacher, are you seeing this information and how they're kind of calling out to this? The other research project that was done in the UK, they looked at Liverpool students, again, across the university. And this was, again, very interesting on how they saw cheating. That AI, or the use of Grammarly or ChatGPT, things of that nature, was okay in a supportive sense, right? They were basically saying we don't want it to write our materials. We don't want it to create the materials. And again, I think of myself as a learner. Yeah, I want to do it myself, right? I want to create something. I want to do it. I don't want somebody else to do it for me. Especially if it's a large project, because at the end of that project, I'm going to look back and say, yeah, I did it. Or I'm going to turn around and say, AI did it. So I think the students are basically saying something that we kind of know, and we want to put them in a position where they're successful, going back to why they cheat. We want them to use tools, they want to use the tools, but again, proficiency, fairness of play come into this. So as a teacher, I want to make sure that the situation that I'm putting students in is fair, and that students that are attempting to cheat, maybe I want to recognize that and say, perhaps this is why you should be doing these exercises. This is why these exercises are important for you to do. Again, the purpose of it, the meaningful aspect of it. Or think about the tasks that I'm giving and change it, right? So that, again, that's part of this process. And I think the students are echoing something that maybe some of us are thinking about already in the way we use AI. And if you haven't thought about it, perhaps you may want to consider some of these things. The last point was students want the university to have a policy. Okay. I think over time, this is, I think, the changes that are coming up is the idea of grassroots, teacher-centered. I'll use AI, he's not using, she's not using AI, she's using AI. I mean, this kind of ad hoc approach is switching over to a more policy-driven approach. And again, students are calling for this, and I think the idea of fairness is what they're concerned about, and I think as teachers we're concerned about the idea of fairness as well. The third study that I wanted to look at, talk about, was done in Saudi Arabia. And again, they're echoing very familiar things. The university is not offering enough AI support when it comes down to it. There's not enough facilities, not enough applications, there's no training, right? And again, there's a feeling that a sense of community, right? I go to this university, I want the university to provide these things for me. And I get a sense of belonging, a sense of, this is what we should be doing together. And that university should have a policy on this, right? So in these examples, you can kind of see where students are thinking, and I don't think it's much different from the teacher's perspective. So again, as a teacher, bringing this into the classroom, what are you doing to help shape the use of AI in the classroom, and that it's productive, and that students are not feeling high anxiety use of it, and that they don't feel shortchanged, or maybe students are able to do something that may be slightly unethical, or we would think is unethical. So again, I'm not really sure how to pronounce these authors' names, but this is the meta analysis done of the articles within the field, and they basically showed 4 broad categories of where research has been going at, and students' response. And again, I think if you're a teacher and you look at this, and it makes sense as we kind of go forward. So again, the technical support, again, you write something, you use AI or some type of tool to help revise or edit it. And yeah, okay, that's fine. The blue section and the green section is, I think, from what I've heard, for example, Jason and Nigel talking a little bit more about this. This is, I think, text development, where students need more support in how to use it in a non-copy paste, in a non-cheating way, right? Again, the skills to do brainstorming, the skills to do literature review. And again, obviously this line can be pushed over into the more transformative potential of how do we work with AI. So again, the mindset, sorry, Hi, Joe. I'm sure you'll be talking about more of this later today. The symbiotic relationship, it's no longer a tool per se, right? We think of AI in a slightly different usage. And I think that students are aware of its potential. Teachers are aware of its potential. And yeah, we're kind of moving forward. There's some resistance to it, but I think, again, as the community moves forward and we think about these things, maybe it'll make more sense to us. And obviously the last portion is the threat, which, again, I'm quite happy to see that students are aware of the threat, right? And again, I think teachers kind of saw the threat first and foremost, and the students are aware of it as well. And I think understanding that and putting it into the context of the students, again, these 4 broad ideas are something that you should be talking about in the class at some level, right? To what extent, again, if your capacity for AI is relatively low, then probably you're not going to be thinking about the potential of AI use, okay? So that's kind of in a nutshell, this broad response to students' perception of use of AI. Okay, so I think as a teacher, I see this and I feel very happy, or less anxiety on my part. That I think, again, the shared community, the idea of where we're going, is a positive step forward. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward. But what I wanted to ask you is, where is your research being done? Okay, where is L2 AI research being done? So there's 4 different points: the global region, educational region. What is being examined? How does your research run? So again, if you just take a moment and kind of consider these ideas, where do you think L2 AI research is being done? We'll discuss.
Today I'm going to talk about quiz. You didn't know it was going to be a quiz, huh? You're a researcher.
Well, actually, I kind of wanted to tie it into the tasks I did when I was looking at this. So kind of today I'm talking about something but the last 2 years that's what especially as students out there. As an old person, do they want to come to I know that you use ChatGPT and a lot of things because there's so many have told me about this. But also some of what we've seen there, like ChatGPT history, you go through it, I see that they're like a particular student that kind of it's all like talking about economics problems. So I know that you're looking for things other than language she's a nurse and she's always asking AI applications. applications from
I believe I can answer questions or the points of 1, 2, and 3. I cannot answer the fourth point. I'm sorry. I'm not that much of a guru. But the first point, or the first 3, is interesting. AI L2 research is predominantly done in Asia. Again, that may make sense to you, but that was a bit of a surprise to me. Also done in higher education, university, and again, part of the research is obviously at universities we research, so that wasn't so surprising to me. Some of the areas that were looked at, again, these are kind of ranked, so speaking was the most popular area or the greatest area of research being done, which was again was surprising to me. I thought maybe writing would have been number 1, but according to these authors, it's speaking, writing, pedagogy, self-regulation, where the ideas of where research should be done. Again, I'm not sure where your research fits in. Maybe listening, maybe gaming, areas that maybe need a little bit more research done. At this moment, I wanted to kind of change directions, maybe go on a slight tangent for just a brief moment. I'll come back. Crossing disciplines. So I think what has been interesting for me is to think about other disciplines and how they're using AI. And in this case, it gives me a chance to look at the computer science discipline, the coders, the programmers, and things of that nature, and how are they approaching language learning. Again, it's a totally different field, totally different discipline, and again, I think it's important for us to maybe reach outside the field and see what's happening in other places. So, again, I'm not sure how to pronounce their names, Cartel and Yazulert. They did a meta-analysis, and again, even at this moment, 2024, I feel like this meta-analysis is already outdated. Even a year or 2 later, it's like that. But basically, NLP, is everybody okay with NLP, natural language processing? Yeah, and AI. And again, my thinking was that AI was the broad umbrella and that NLP was a subset of it. Again, okay, I'm not a computer science person, so fine. But what I thought, and looking at their article, was how they got it. And again, this is obviously not really easy to see, but you know, we do mind maps in our language teaching, and I think this is kind of a good exercise for you to do as well. Again, it's hard to see, and I'd say, okay, later, look at the article and think about it. Use your mind map. How do you see artificial intelligence, NLP? And again, these are computer science people looking at language learning. Okay, so if you're not a computer science person, that's fine. You're a language teacher, you were trained in a particular way. Again, you have your own mind map. And again, these small keywords are all throughout. How do you see language learning, the process of language learning? And I found it really interesting that they said, okay, NLP is a complementary effect of AI. They're slightly different. The focuses are slightly different. And then, again, NLU to me is the newer stage that we're moving into. So natural language understanding, which again, kind of this idea of how we are integrating AI into our daily lives. It's just not a tool anymore. So I find it quite interesting how they are using it. And then, again, where can I put this into my teaching? How do I see vocabulary being used in my classroom? How do computer science people see vocabulary being used? Again, the use of AI and such. Yes? So, again, encouraging you to go and think about how you're using AI in your classroom on different levels. Surprisingly, I'm going to come back now. That was my tangent. Surprisingly, TESOL has technology standards for language teachers. Surprise! it's not necessarily well known, and if you're older like me, you know that technology's been around. We've been through several stages of this, and it's quite interesting to see this. And again, I'm not sure this is so well known, but again, we have formal training, we have informal training. So again, your understanding of technology. And then if we look at what is expected of us as teachers, okay, what are the standards? Okay, do students expect you to use technology? To what extent do the students expect you to use technology? What do we expect other teachers to use in the classroom? What technology are you supposed to be capable of using? Okay, and I find this, again, satisfying, heartwarming, that in our field we have some accountability. It may not be so strong, but I think AI might be something moving forward where, as a field on the whole, we're going to have to step up. Right? I think at this moment, avoiding technology or just be paper and pencil type of teacher, that's going to have a severe limitation in your teaching as we go forward. I'm not saying that there's not a place for that, you can't do that. I'm just saying that the expectation of teachers being able to use a high level of technology in the classroom is going to be expected. It's going to be higher. You might say that's always been the case, but I think AI is probably going to be a bigger jump than what we are maybe prepared for. And as we move forward, the jumps seem to be a little bit bigger. Not to be fearful, I think this should be embraced. But again, making this known in your university, making it known to the other language teachers. So again, teachers that might be fearful of using new technology, or I'm not good at technology, I don't want to do this, right? I think getting it out there and getting them to self-assess. What do you know about the use of AI in the classroom? Right? Again, the university should be providing some form where teachers can get together and say, I don't know, I need a little more help. Or I have this crazy bias against AI and I don't, no. I think the group or the university has a responsibility to address that issue and talk about it and see if we can move forward with that. Again, these are the use of standards of technology in our field. For whatever reason, I'm using a little bit of an older slideshow, but this particular article, I didn't know where to put. Sorry, I didn't want to give it a slide on its own. It's been on about 3 or 4 different slides, trying to work it in somewhere, somehow, some way. The only reason why I want to make a mention of this is that this is the most cited article for AI use in foreign language teaching. And I don't know if anybody is aware of Greg Kessler. He's at Ohio State. Yeah. Fantastic guy. Again, good writer, lots of good ideas. And I think just if you haven't read the article, go and look at it. And again, it might influence you, get you, again, into using AI or more accepting of where you can be or how you can use AI in your teaching. So, slight crossroads. Going back a little bit of specifically the pedagogy of where AI is being used in the classroom. So this is the British Council. Again, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the British Council. They have a research arm within their company, if you will. And so they basically looked at all the British Council fiefdoms, if you will, and picked out, again, they did a meta-analysis of what was going on under British Council teaching in these 5 areas. And they said, okay, speaking, this is the #1 area. And they broke it down into skill, technology, and pedagogy. And they said, okay, speaking, skill, pronunciation. Technology, they had a lot more things under technology. But you get the sense of the technology will allow students to hear themselves, get a sense of being analyzed, where are they at in that nature. And then pedagogy, so using AI as a language coach, using AI as a conversational partner, using AI in a multimodal way in the sense of they get video text or they get visuals, text. Again, the idea of being multimodal in using speaking instead of just speaking in and of itself. Yes? I found this interesting because I used call back in the 90s, a long time ago. And I think being aware of using machines to have students be aware of what they're doing is quite interesting because it has a chance of reinforcing stereotypes or, again, reinforcing the model, if you will. But I think also it has a chance to maybe examine the model and think about diversity a little bit more. And it gives us more opportunity to think about the diversity of pronunciation, what can and cannot be understood. I find that really interesting. I don't know if anybody has seen any of the YouTube clips on the Scottish speakers in the elevator. Very frustrating experience for them. It's humor where the Scottish people go into the elevator and they say, 11th floor, please. And obviously the elevator says, excuse me? Could you say that again? And there's several minutes of that. And then an American walks in and says, 11th floor, please. Yes, okay, doors close and they go up, right? So again, this idea that there's one correct pronunciation is the idea. And I think AI can handle that much better than previous iterations of it. So it's quite interesting. Again, that was my fear when I saw it. And I said, okay, now that I've become more familiar with it, okay, I can see the benefits. Writing, I know Jason has talked about this, and we'll probably talk about more of it today. The idea of how can we use AI in writing. Again, the transition from just a tool to say edit to a tool that might be helping us a little bit more. Again, brainstorming, that collective effort, to something even more. And that even more is still a bit vague, right? And where we're going. I think there's still lots of things to be explored there. Same thing with reading. Again, these are all pretty familiar, but I'd like to highlight the idea of gaming. Again, I found that's really interesting. That, and again, it's how I see it a little bit well, that in gaming there's a lot of reading involved. I think that's something that we can explore or individualize within our classroom. To what extent can we use games? I'm a big proponent of using games, by the way. And again, moving away from translation. Again, translation's fine, but I think students know that they learn a language not just to Google Translate everything. Again, that's a time thing, it's a time management thing. I think we use language for things more than just that. Pedagogy, again, this is kind of interesting because the focus of these research articles were mainly about pedagogy. I know the other categories had pedagogy, but that wasn't their focus. This was looking at AI and pedagogy itself. So how can teachers improve their lectures? How can teachers improve their explanations? How can AI help in that aspect? Okay, those were the two that I kind of thought was very interesting. Like, okay, give me better examples, or again, the heuristic device of it. And of course, there are others. Again, you can use it for assessment, context-based learning, and there's other things, again, that we can use AI to focus in on your pedagogy. Self-regulation, this one was a really interesting aspect to me. Again, if you're into self-directed learning, again, if you want, again, the ideal beyond the university, again, these are lifelong learning concepts. Again, how do we set goals, self-inquiry, how do you assess yourself, evaluate yourself, things of that nature. And of course, enjoyment, right? I think AI can help with enjoyment and lower anxiety in the sense of how you see learning. Again, the individualization of AI possibility in learning is quite high. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we can look at in the sense of self-regulation going forward. And I think that goes beyond the classroom. So what areas are missing? I spoke about this briefly. So of course listening, an area that again AI is not necessarily being researched. Self-assessment, again assessment but not self-directed learning assessment is still missing. So how do people, again this is kind of a problematic research area because if they're doing it independently, how do I get that information? They're doing it independently. So usually the two difficult areas of doing research are demotivated people because they're not going to participate. Right? It's hard to get them. You'd like to know why they're not motivated, but by the very nature of them not being motivated, it's hard to get them. And the same thing with self-directed learning, right? They're self-directed learning. It's hard to get them to come back and tell why they're successful at it. They're beyond your reach, so to speak, in research. So challenges, obviously we have a lot of challenges to consider. Obviously AI is in the technology side of things, and if you've been to Cambodia, sometimes things break down, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. And there's limited capabilities, right? And the AI takes money, takes resources. And we know that the world is not necessarily fair in that sense of sharing information. Does this reduce the digital divide, or does it increase the digital divide? Right? Some of these things that we need to think about. Obviously, fear is still there. And then to me, again, being aware of prescriptive standardization. To me, this is something that, again, what is the model? This type of pronunciation is correct, this type of pronunciation is incorrect type of thing. And again, I think the potential is to avoid that pitfall. I'm not saying that AI will reinforce stereotypes, but it obviously has the potential to do that. Again, allowing, again, I think if you used Word or Excel or any of these ideas, when you type something out creatively and you get the little squiggly line that says you need a comma here. It's like, I don't need a comma. I don't want a comma. The sense of, again, it's telling you this is correct. Again, the lack of creativity on your part, or at least questioning your creativity, is something that I still kind of get riled up about. So implications, just to kind of finish things up here, coming back to the 4 pillars of ideas. So again, policies. Within the last 6 months at Soka University, we have looked at our policy, and this is kind of what the center has decided moving forward. We said, okay, we want teachers to say this to the students. We want to create an agreement with our students. This needs to be on your syllabus. You need to do this in the classroom. You got to sit down and spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes of your class time saying, how do we use AI? This is a class policy. So again, this is from a language center perspective, right? Other departments have slightly different agreements, but again, throughout the university, each department is basically saying, you, the teacher, need to have a policy. Here is a policy that we are encouraging. It's not draconian yet, but the idea of you sitting down and saying, okay, these are the things that you, of the use with your students. What is okay? What is not okay? Are there any questions? If there are questions, how do we deal with this? Again, this idea of fairness and being equitable in a time where maybe things are not so clear. The community. Again, often, I think the community has obviously different ways, different perspectives of thinking about this. This is what I was thinking about in a sense from the AI's perspective. So again, AI is at the center of society. It's not a tool, it's how we share, how we work. So where is AI in our community? How is it being used in our community? Obviously, AI can learn, right? It can represent, it can do lots of different things. So obviously one aspect is our interaction with it, but it can do things on its own. And again, that perception of the community. What is the AI's community? Right? Again, not necessarily just always focusing on what AI can do for us, but what can we do for AI in the sense of that mutual working relationship, if you will. Capacity. Again, this is what I found really, really interesting. 37% have never used AI and don't plan to use AI. Again, I'm not sure if this represents a percentage of the elderly teachers in the program. I don't know how many people are, over 60 in the program and saying, I'm not going to use it. I don't know if you have a third young teachers, a third middle-aged teachers, a third old teachers, whatever the case may be. I don't know if that number represents that, but it's still something in our community of AI. We're all interested in AI. To what extent can we help these groups of people? Obviously, we have a large group that have never used, but plan to use. So the question is how do we approach them, or how can they approach us to use it? Again, part of it is being a good colleague, right? Some of you use it more than the other colleagues, and again, helping out and sharing that information. So again, to me, where we're at is looking at the different types of teachers and where they're at. How can we get more teachers involved? And that involvement obviously means that we have to make people more aware. So I think for us, getting greater knowledge helps us promote AI literacy. I think by having greater knowledge, we can see where AI fits in. We can influence the policies being made, right? We can act upon these things. Again, we have interest. You're stepping forward. You are the leaders, and therefore people will come to you and see you and talk to you. And again, I think by you showing that you're thinking about these things, right? That you're evaluating these things. These all come back to how they fit in with capacity, the community, and policy, right? So these four pillars, if you will, work intertwined. And that's something that I think is really, really important as we go forward. So, closing remarks then, will AI replace teachers? My answer is no, because this is the wrong slide. But basically, replace, no. I think it's the wrong word to be used here. I think share, the idea of where we're at is that AI is a part of our lives. Again, it's used in different ways. How, as teachers, can we demonstrate that more effectively? And again, through greater awareness, increasing other people's capacity, setting standards, making policy effective for all is kind of where I'd like us to go. And with that, for those of you of the 80s. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. So thank you. And if you have questions or comments, it's time for us to maybe share a little bit of time with that.
Ewan's got a question.
Go ahead. Ewan, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much. You mentioned three things for me. I mean, cow. Thank you. I haven't heard that in a lecture for ages. So it brought back that nostalgic feeling of having used it. So thank you for that. You also mentioned not using commas and that annoying habit that comes up with AI at the moment. So I completely agree with that. But you made the comment, a leap. The students are taking a leap forward when using AI. And I've certainly seen that in the last 12 months. I teach academic writing, and I ask them to produce an essay at the end of the semester, and they have to use referencing and citations, and it's often a very new thing for them. They've never done it before. They're university students. They've never done it before.
Exactly.
So we take that forward.
Yeah.
I encourage the use of AI for them to do it. And in the last 12 months, there's been a huge increase in the number of students using AI. Absolutely, completely changed. It's like 90%, 95% of the students. My challenge is my class policy on AI. And is it robust enough to make sure that we avoid plagiarism and the misuse of AI? And if you have any guidance on class policies, some help, I'm really asking for help. That would be really useful. Thank you.
Yeah, great comments, and I think we're in a similar position. I don't teach writing per se, but the Language Center, we talk specifically about these things. And it was, part of this is, again, I have some technological skills, but AI feels to me a little bit, it's pushing my levels of, and so the students are getting particular classes to help them in programming, so they seem much more attuned to using some of the software that's available to them than myself and other teachers. And I think this is something that we've been talking about, and I think this the policy statement that I showed you is something like this. I don't think it has to be robust in the sense, it goes back to, is your assignment meaningful? And if the students find it meaningful, and the other students were basically saying the same thing, is they want to do good work. They want to be proud of their work. And I think using AI, if we accept it, to what extent they might be questioning is, how much of this is mine? Again, I know when I write, I sit down and I write, and then I go to AI and put it in and say, help me out, so to speak. But I think they're moving beyond that, which I'm not really clear about myself, or the teachers involved are not really clear, but I think just in the last semester that we've had, just sitting down and talking to the students, I think makes a big difference. Especially admitting to them, listen, there's some vagueness to here. I don't know all the answers here. If you're not sure, talk to me about it. And that seems to be working to the point. Again, my general gut feeling is the kids that are going to teach or that are just there to get the degree, I'm not sure how I can deal with them because they were accepted by the university. And they're doing it for more than my class. They're doing it for lots of classes. So again, having that connectivity to the school to change their attitude is something beyond my language class. It's a start. And I find at my university, a lot of times what we're doing in the Language Center is pushing the university forward. They see what we're doing, and now other departments said, you guys have a language policy? You guys talk about this? Oh, we'll put this in. And they do it in Japanese. So it's, kind of, we're pushing them, and then that helps kind of normalize it within the context. But yes, it's such a gray area. But I think where you're starting off and just talking about it helps. Yeah. And where we go from there, I'm not a good answer, but other than you're doing the correct thing, right? But yeah. Anyone else? Sorry, Jason.
Oh, I was just going to make a quick comment.
Yeah.
Or it's just Jeanette has a question, because we're going to have all day.
We have time? Okay.
Okay, be the next one.
Oh, well, okay, I'll be fast. I was just going to, thinking about when you said, will teachers be replaced?
Right.
And you said, well, no, maybe more complemented. And I said, well, I would say maybe bad teachers will be replaced, or poorly trained teachers will be replaced, or going back to that slide where you're showing 37% who don't use it and don't plan to use it, I actually hope they're close to retirement age.
Yeah. Again, I think you're
Because-
you're alluding to standards, right?
Yeah.
And I think maybe in the past, when Excel came out,
Sorry, is that controversial?
I was going to say, this is probably the opposite, right? The old crowd is leading the charge. Yeah, sorry. Would it
That's basically it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I think holding ourselves to higher standards and making those standards known is something that, will help.
Yeah, and hopefully, administrations give teachers who don't know how to use it very well a chance to train and adapt
Yes.
before they're given the boot.
Right, eliminated, yeah.
I would hope so,
Yeah.
in an
yeah.
ideal world at least.
Yes, in an ideal world. And I think at our institution, this is the Language Center's way of moving forward, having these professional development sessions, faculty sessions and things like that. It's limited in its capability. We don't get much money for it and things like that. But I think just having them is the start. And I think for the university, they see that and kind of say, oh yeah, we should do that. Right? Other departments.
Yeah, there needs to be more for sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
Right, I'm Jeanette and I'm from MCU. Thank you very much for the presentation, first of all. I actually want to respond to Ian's question because I think I'm actually encountering a similar issue. I think most of the teachers are facing a similar issue as well, whether the students are using AI to cheat, for example, in writing especially. I'm not sure if it's a piece of advice, but maybe you can also give me advice as well. I'm doing two things to kind of to tackle that. The first one is I'm using that kind of like AI detector. I'm not sure if anyone of you has been using this, and I'm not sure if they're doing a good job, so maybe you can give me an advice. I'm currently using the Grammarly, the AI detector. So I actually did a little bit of testing before. So I asked ChatGPT to give me a piece of essay. So I put it there. So it's 100% AI generated content. So I kind of rewrite it using similar points, and that will come out, for example, 20% or 30%. So I tell my students if I would just copy and paste that writing into the AI detector. If it's about 30%, I'm not going to even look at your writing. So they know that AI is accepted, they can use it.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, even if they are using AI, for example, ChatGPT to write the essay, but if they just go over the whole essay, they rewrite it themselves, they're using some similar points, the percentage would be below 30%. So to me, it's not the best way to do a piece of homework, but that's not the worst way in the sense that because they have gone through some other writings and have rewritten it. So that's what I'm trying to do. And secondly, I do give feedback to each writing. Yeah. So what I'm trying to tell them is, if you're giving me a piece of writing that's written by AI, it doesn't help you because I'm just giving comments to the AI, not you.
Correct.
So, so what I'm trying to say is, I'll talk to them individually. So to make sure they feel like, okay, if I'm doing something with the AI, it doesn't help anyone.
Yeah.
So that's why.
So I'm just going to have to interrupt you so we can stay on schedule. But thank you very much, Paul.
Yeah. I agree 100% with what you're doing. Yeah, it's good, right?
That was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
And Jamie, I have to give you a certificate. Yeah, here. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, next panel, please get ready.
Well, I would, but I'd have to be in the photo.
Okay, thank you.
There you go, Paul. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Jason.